From that, let's cross to Singapore today because on his travels as he inches towards Vienna, that's right, Pete McGuire en route to OPEC. We're just talking crude prices. Pete, welcome, CEO XM Group there in Singapore. What is the feeling even in Asia, Pete, right now? I mean, here we have a country where subsidies have... Well, we were of the belief they were meant to deliver even greater benefits to the consumer. When we're talking something like energy, they were capped a lot of that, and they still are capped a lot of the prices. But in a down market, which is what we have been discussing for so many months, what has the net change been for Singapore? How do you judge it on the ground, the appetite of consumers to do their shopping?
Good afternoon, Carson. Good afternoon. Look, there's no doubt. I mean, it still is as rapid as I've seen it. It always surprises you. I mean, Singapore is an electric city. I mean, it's so much energy in the whole hub. You know, underground transportation, vehicles, construction. The place is booming, and it continues. They say there are downturns, but at the present time, I've got to say, from an observer, it's very, very vibrant and exciting.
Peter, Tony Farnham here from Patterson, Talk Oil. We see over the weekend Iraq's walking away supposedly from any production agreement. Is the end game here that they're going to deliver something OPEC and have a few friends beside with Russia believable?
Well, Tony, I think one of the great issues is that naturally from Iraq's situation and how they're viewing their involvement, they're spending a hell of a lot of money, as we know, as far as fighting IS. So, in turn, they don't want to be a part of this. They're the second largest producer in OPEC, and they just want to increase as far as from production. And that's their mantra, and that's the way that they're working through things. Now, whether they'll be successful depends, of course, where Russia sits, what happens as far as the Saudis. And as the price edges up higher, Tony, you've got more rigs coming online, which in turn the US is saying they can more or less work through this $50, $52 a barrel crude. They can survive at that sort of number.
Tony, Mark Todd here, and it's 5:53 on Baker Hughes. Would you characterise they walked away or ran away or it fell away in a way that wouldn't have surprised you? Is it one of those things where you say, we all understand that everyone is their own individual actor in this. It's not like they're all state-controlled entities. You've got the US who are, you know, almost unregulated to an extent around the fracking story. It should not be a surprise to anyone, should it?
No, it's probably not, Mark. I mean, you know, but you've also got to appreciate the complexities as far as IS and the whole machinations across that region. I was in Abu Dhabi yesterday. Certainly, it gets a lot of press coverage, and the tensions you can more or less feel them. They're conscious of it and what's moving forward as far as the Mosul issue, whether it's going to be a quick and rapid achievement, or it's going to be dragged out, and the jury's out on that one. So in turn, it doesn't surprise you. We're still about best part of 5 weeks away, of course, from OPEC, and naturally in the 2 weeks or 19 odd days or so away from the Clinton/Trump. So there's a lot of uncertainty. We're conscious as far as US dollar and the situation. I think crude will probably stay range-bound over the short to medium term.
So, Peter, the Saudis successfully given the US producers a few uppercuts and got them back to the pack. But for the Saudis themselves, what's the best benefit for them from getting oil prices up? Is it just get the barrels through the register to a higher level, or are they looking ahead to that IPO coming up?
Well, twofold, of course. Naturally, everyone's screaming as far as, production and what's happening as far as costs. So we want to see, naturally, they all want to see, $55, $60, $65 crude. Is it achievable? Maybe. But unfortunately, for as far as Saudis are concerned, as the price edges higher, so do more rigs come online, which increases production out of the US. So in turn, I think it's going to be a very interesting how it plays out over the next 3 to 6 months leading into that IPO, of course.
And this is the first time, I've been doing this for, 6 or 7 months. on the Tuesday, and we've been chatting since that time. This is the first time you've mentioned IS. Is that something that you think may not be truly appreciated in this region around the ramifications it's having to geopolitical economy, just spirits in the areas that you're talking about?
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, as far as the Mideast is and the workings, it's very conscious over there. The news coverage, as far as not only TV but of course every form, social and press, it really gets a lot of traction and a lot of interest. And naturally, the way it's working through. Will Mosul? What happens after that? Will they move on to other towns? What's happening as far as as far as Turkey's concerned? All the Syria situation. So really, it's creating. There's a lot of, I suppose, as I said, confusion. And I don't think we do appreciate it truly in Australia to how the Middle East looks at it.
Do you think though that gold markets, that bullion has actually priced all this in? You reeled off the list. They are known knowns. We may not appreciate the magnitude ahead, but gold has rallied 19% this year. Mark Mobius calls where you are home, incidentally, I believe, still. So on that measure, he's talking about maybe another 15% rally by year end. What would trigger that? We don't have that much left to go. I mean, what comes out of left field?
Possibly they don't have a rate rise. It's still unknown as far as who's going to lead the states. You've got, I think, geopolitically, if something does happen and the Mosul situation becomes far worse, I mean, all of these ingredients, Carson, go into the mix. And what happens if the US dollar comes off?
Central banks could buy a whole lot more.
As far as equities, of course, all of that. So again, there are just so many unknowns out there, which in turn, you've seen gold rally strongly. We can't take that away. Maybe it's got a 1,300 handle on it. I mean, Mark Mobius, very well respected in the industry, so it could well be. I mean, he may be correct.
What about the Saudi-US relationships? When I read about it, it seems to be, going in opposite directions since the 9/11 board, and since they've done the review, there's been some criticisms both of Trump and Clinton about what they'll do with Saudi and how they'll allow litigation to take place. That seems to be something that isn't really helping the global situation.
No, exactly right. I mean, if you put your mind back to how the Bush administration and that really over that 20-year window, probably from say 86, 87, all the way up to say 2010, they had a fairly, I think there was a very strong relationship there. And it seems to have gone the other way over the last, say, 4 to 5 years. And now, of course, throwing more, smoke in there as far as US production. So as the US looks at raising its production, it's coming in to, attack the Saudi market and, of course, OPEC. So I think it just adds a little bit of hostility there. And it'll be interesting what happens on, 30th of November as far as where Saudi sit and OPEC and whether there are going to be any production cuts.
Well, as you speak, the IEA's head, Birol from the IEA, so a member of the International Energy Agency, has been out talking about rebalancing into 2017. They seem to be pushing out as they want to do, but still a rebalance is being, again, talked of, but not necessarily sooner than we might have hoped. Pete, thank you so much and all the best with your travels.
Thank you, Carson.
XM.com CEO there, Pete McGuire, live from Singapore. Time for